Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ethos Online, a place where we want to be, belong, and become the very best version of ourselves. And so again, wherever you're joining us, we want to let you know we are so excited that you continue to work with us as a community and we continue to delve into deeper and deeper concepts in this narrative we call the Bible. And so as always, I want to start by saying, please subscribe to this channel and click that little bell every time we have a new video coming up. It should let you know. It'll give you a little ding ding. Also, please consider giving to ethos.org/donate. We would love to have you continue working with us. Ethos-Church.org. We'd love to have you work with us in basically helping spread these messages. We think the Bible narrative is something that's powerfully restorative even for today. And so please consider sharing it and partnering with us. And so we as a group, we have been moving through this thing we call the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus essentially, he climbs up onto this mountain, and again, he begins sharing all of these teachings. And so once more, we always do a recap. And so once more, any Jewish person who's listening to this, watching or reading as this individual Jesus goes and sits on top of this mountain and begins sharing messages from Torah, you are immediately brought back to Moses. You immediately see the connection. Jesus begins doing exactly what Moses did and what any other rabbi would do. They begin sharing deep messages of what it means to be human. And so, of course, we read this one over and over again. The Sermon on the Mount is actually a deeper critique into the heart of the law. It reclaims the beauty of living life in harmony with each other. And so again, that is the beauty of this teaching. And that's why I think this is probably the most famous one. And every time you look, whether it's a humanist or a Christian or a Buddhist, whoever, anyone can find beauty in these teachings because really it's getting to the very heart of what it means to be a human, a loving human looking for harmony. And so again, that's why I think we spend time with this message. And so again, anytime we look at a message, we want to make sure we understand the time and the context. And so of course, the time and the context is a time when Israel just lost their temple, right? They're raided by the Romans. They had taken Jerusalem back and they had it for a little while. But again, they took it by force, by violence, and violence always escalates more violence. Violence begets more violence. And so the Romans come in and they attack these Jews who have taken back Jerusalem, and it is bloody, it's ugly, and their temple's destroyed. And once again, they fall into captivity. And that's when the message of Jesus is written. 70 AD is when they begin to share this message of there is a different way to do this now. We don't have to live life in pain and brokenness. Even in captivity, we can find a new way to be human. And so that's the beauty of this message. It's the Law 2.0 again. It's showing here's what it looks like when we live in harmony even with our enemies. And so the whole message again in Matthew 5, it starts with a bunch of blessings. And we know again, blessings means happy are you, right? Full are you if you choose to do these things. These things are the things that are going to bring you happiness. And so we've gone through quite a few of these blessings, and it's been so much fun. And so many of you have contacted me and said, man, just one little blessing and you can unpack it like that. Well, yeah, one blessing has, again, if we were to put these to practice, like life right now for each of us, it would be so full. We'd be experiencing so much beauty. And so again, we'll look at this one today. This is the second to last blessing. And so here's the next one, Matthew 5, verse 9. It reads like this: "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Peacemakers. So of course, when I begin thinking about peacemakers and the concept of peace, I want to just throw out this simple question to you. What is peace to you? When you hear that word peace, what images, ideas are associated with the idea of peace? So for many people in our culture, especially now, we're in 2020, it's January, and our nation is at odds with Iran, and it's looking like there could potentially be a war, right? For many of us, we think of peace as kind of the dictionary piece, the Western idea of peace, right? Freedom from disturbance or quiet, right? We think of no war. Yeah, peace is a state where we are in no war. Now, no war, but we as individuals, are we changed or not? Does us as a nation not being at war affect me personally and how I engage with community? Well, maybe, maybe not. But for the Jewish people, the idea of peace was shalom. And again, shalom, and we've done this before, but shalom is such a beautiful concept. Shalom means nothing missing, nothing broken. And so that is for the individual, that's for the community, that's for the nation, right? That's for our tribe. Nothing missing, nothing broken. That's shalom. That's something we move toward, right? And shalom, it continues. There's never like a moment where you say, we've experienced full shalom. Shalom continues. Shalom continues building. And it reaches here, but it goes there, and it basically puts back together things that have been broken. And shalom is process. Shalom is constant little movements, these micro movements toward fullness, where people are restored, where relationships are restored. That is shalom. And again, it's such a beautiful concept. And I think in Western world, we kind of miss that, don't we? We've kind of taken a beautiful idea and we've really simplified it so much so that it kind of removes some of the beauty of it. Now, for Israel, shalom, it's something again that progressed. For them in the Old Testament, and again, I get this all the time. People say, but the Old Testament, that's a different kind of God. The Old Testament was brutal and evil and they're killing each other. Well, of course, right? These are ancient tribal people. And they're learning and they're growing and they're trying things. And they keep falling into the same vicious patterns. And so for these ancient people in the Old Testament, these Israelites, for them, oftentimes they would associate peace in a very similar way that we do today in our Western American world. For them, here's how peace looked, right? Here's how we get to peace. And so when you look at Numbers 25, there's this interesting moment where peace is restored. And so I'm going to read you the story and watch how they oftentimes would fall back into the cycle of, this is how we think peace is restored. So it goes like this. Then an Israelite man brought into the camp a Midianite woman. Again, this was the enemy at that point. Right before the eyes of Moses and the whole assembly of Israel, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he left the assembly, he took a spear in his hand, and followed the Israelite into the tent. When he gets into the tent, it says he drove the spear into both of them, right? Drove it into both of them, right through the Israelite man and into the woman's stomach. Like, this is brutal, right? Like, this is not something you tell children like on a felt board, right? This is brutal. This is pretty horrific. Like, we wouldn't show our kids this, right, on television. Yeah, we would not do this, but this is what it looks like in the Old Testament, right? And it continues. Then the plague against the Israelites was stopped. Notice this. They believed God had sent these plagues, right? And so because of this action, something's been restored. The plague is no longer there. And then it continues. It says, but those who had died in the plague numbered 24,000. The Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger away from the Israelites. Again, by murdering these two, right? While they were bumping and grinding, doing their thing in the tent, right? He murders them. Yeah, he has turned my anger against them. He was as zealous for my honor among them as I am. I did not put an end to them in my zeal. Therefore, tell him I am making my covenant of peace with him. So, in the Old Testament, right, when again, these are ancient tribal people, they often associated this God as an angry God. And so because this God is angry and violent and sends plagues, then that must be the way that we get to shalom. If that's the way God gets to shalom, then that must be the way we get to shalom. Do you see how this all pans out? But here's the beauty of this. When Jesus steps in, he says, no. Here's the thing. Violence and peace, they shouldn't go hand in hand. Jesus says we should switch the narrative a bit. We've tried that, right? Like we've tried bombing you when we didn't like you, when we thought things were going to get bad. And what did that do? Well, yeah, it created more bombing. We tried murdering our enemies, their children, their women, their elderly. We did that in the Old Testament, didn't we? And what did that do? Well, if you read the narratives, it always escalated more violence. And Jesus essentially poses the question, is there a better way? Could there be a better way to deal with these problems when there's injustice and brokenness in the world? Is there a better way to deal with my enemies other than violence? And so that's the question. And so, of course, many people will go to Matthew because there's a really interesting moment in Matthew. It's found in Matthew 23:27. Jesus, he goes into the temple and he starts flipping things over, right? We're told sometimes stories will say, Jesus goes postal, right? He goes nuts and he loses his cool and he just destroys things. He hurts people. He hurts animals. That's oftentimes the narrative people will try to tell. And I've often heard people who endorse violence. Well, Jesus was angry. He did this, and they'll oftentimes go to that story in Matthew 25. But here's what I'd like to show you about Matthew 25, because in Matthew 25, something fascinating pops up to me. If you read a little deeper, you'll see it. Watch this. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. Now, here's the thing. If you were a Jewish person in the first century, you would know this. During the festivals, right? You would go into town and you would basically bring your sheep, your sacrificial sheep, or if you didn't have enough money, maybe a dove. And what would happen often is when you brought it to the priest would look it over and say, oh, yeah, this one has a spot. They'd take your sheep or your dove, which was pretty spotless, right? The best you had. They'd take it and put it into a pen. From the same pen, they would pull another sheep or a dove, and they'd hand it to you and say, this one will do better, but you owe me this much money. Truth is, they were just taking people's, put them in the same one and taking the same one back. Essentially, they were ripping people off. And Jesus sees this, right? He sees the injustice. Religious structure is oppressing and abusing its power, along with, obviously, political power during the day. And so Jesus sees this, and what does he do? He sees the injustice going on. What does he do? It says he drives them out. It says he makes a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers, overturns the table. He goes Hulk, right? He goes green. To those who sold doves, he said, get these out of here. Stop turning my father's house into a market. So again, does Jesus get angry? Does he throw his fists through the computer screen? Does he lose it? All right, that's the question. Does he lose it? Does he get violent on people? Does he go too far? Does he hit his boiling point, and does he do something he's going to regret? Well, look at this. Again, don't miss it. So he made a whip out of the cords. Ugh, a whip, right? In our culture, we think, we don't make whips in our culture unless a couple other things. But usually that's associated with violence and hurting people. But notice this, what he does with it. And drove all from the temple courts. Now, what are all? Well, it tells you the very next part. Both sheep and cattle. Now, again, we're not an agrarian culture. I get it. But if you make a whip during that first century and even previous, the only way to get a big old horse or cow or sheep or whatever, you're not going to be able to push them, right? You have to whip them. That's very normal. That's not PETA. You don't have to be upset here. You're hitting them. You're psh, 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 that drives them out. Notice this. He's not whipping people. He's not hurting people. He's herding, right? He's pushing the animals out. He's getting them out of the temple because this whole system has been abused. And he's saying, this thing doesn't work. Let's start over. Let's clear the thing out. And again, if you pick up on this idea of clearing, you'll understand over and over again in the Bible, we get this concept. When things get messy and cluttered, we clear it out. We begin again. And that's essentially what Jesus is doing. And he's not doing it in a violent way. Yes, he's throwing over tables. He's making a pretty big statement, isn't he? But no one was hurt during the filming of this. No one's hurt during this. This is not violence. There's a difference. Jesus does get angry, though, doesn't he? Jesus gets angry. And so the question, of course, for me is, what do I do when I get angry? What actions come out of me? For Jesus, it's almost like a huge political protest there. When you get angry, when certain things are stirred in you, when there is injustice, right? When you've been ripped off, when you have been hurt, when someone has been abused in your family or you have been abused, what is your typical response? Think about that one. What is your response to injustice? Of course, there's anger, but what does the anger lead to? For the Israelites, the anger often would lead to violence. And you see that again, Numbers 25, 6 through 13. You get that story. He picks up the javelin. In his anger, he murders one of his own people, and another innocent woman murders them. Yes, they were enemies, right? They were people who didn't see exactly the same as them. They were people from another country, another tribe. They were innocent people, and he murders them, right? What does your anger lead to? But then there's Jesus. There's injustice. He sees the injustice in the temple, and it causes with him anger. What does his anger move him to? Basically non-violence, right? Political protests, resetting the structure. And he does it in such a way that, again, it protests the very thing being done. And it does it in a non-violent way. This is a political protest. It's beautiful. And so injustice, I want to make this very, very clear. If there's injustice in the world, you should be angry. When something bad happens to someone at the hands of someone else, and it's done just in such an evil, evil way, we should be angry. We should be angry at terrorists, right? We should be angry when our country terrorizes others. We should be angry. Anger is a normal response. Anger is a normal response. But again, what will you do with the anger? What will you do? Because it's almost as if Jesus says, I'm angry. Why am I angry? I'm angry because there's injustice. What's my response? What will make the most, what kind of protest will make the biggest impact? That's what he does. So again, you can either allow your anger to restore or your anger to destroy. So which will it be? Which will it be? For Jesus, over and over again, let me go back one slide. For Jesus, over and over again, it's almost as if he says, look, you can either do this or this. We've done it this way. We've done this in the past. We have responded in violence. It's why the temple in 70 AD is destroyed again. And that's why the Jewish people are saying, is this the end of our nation? They've done that. Maybe peaceful resistance, maybe that's worth a try. It reminds me of Paul when he says, look, if you tell a thief, stop stealing, that's not very compelling, is it? Right? Like, stop stealing, don't do that anymore. Tell that to a child. Not going to have them do it. If my child is pulling out the drawers, and this is what my daughter will often do, pulling things out of the drawers, just playing with everything, she needs something to do with her hands. And so if I give my daughter something new to do with her hands that's constructive, I can move that energy in a positive direction. And the same goes with anger. What are you angry about right now? What injustice are you seeing in the world? And it just fills you with so much rage. That's energy that you have, and it can be sent somewhere, right? It's going to be sent somewhere. You're going to end up kicking your dog, right? Or you're going to end up doing something positive in the world, going to a homeless shelter, volunteering at the school where you've seen these kids bullied so much, and you're going to do something about it. You're going to volunteer and help. You're going to be a positive presence at that school. You're so frustrated, right, about certain things in the world. Go out, let that anger drive you into something positive. And when you do, you have participated in something Jesus calls the kingdom of heaven. You've participated in rebuilding something toward shalom. It's beautiful. So blessed are the peacemakers, right? for they will be called children of God. Or maybe you could even say this: people seeking peace, they look like the divine. People seeking peace look like the divine. It's beautiful. And so again, great message. How do we do it? Right? If we can't talk about how we did it, then there's no real reason we do it, right? So again, here it is. I picked up some of these ideas and I wanted to share some with you. So again, how do we move our anger towards something positive? First one here: use anger to motivate. So use that passion, that frustration, use it to motivate you to do something positive. A great way to turn anger into positive energy: grab hold of the reason for the emotion being there, using your feelings as the motivation to change your circumstances. Use it. Think of it as fuel. Let it be the fuel that drives you. Every time you're feeling unmotivated, right? You started this cause, you started volunteering, whatever it is, and you felt lazy one day. Reignite the anger. Remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Let that thing be a motivation for doing positive in the world. Another thing, optimistic anger. When you're feeling angry over injustice, allow yourself to say something really simple. It's very easy. It's good that I feel angry. Right? It's good that I feel angry, because if I wasn't feeling angry about this injustice, I would not be on the right track, would I? If I'm angry about this injustice, I'm probably pretty in tune with the divine. I'm probably moving in the right direction. It's good that I'm feeling angry about this. Yeah. Another one: turn it into action. Use that anger as fuel. Find ways to bring restoration to the issue at hand. Always consider restoration. When you feel the anger, let restoration walk right along with it. Another one: this is so important for me. Allow love to hold hands with anger. It's a weird image, isn't it? Anger and love, when they hold hands and they walk forward, they create something again like shalom. And so as your anger is felt, take time to remember that it is love that caused you to feel the anger toward the injustice first, and it's love that's going to finish the work. Love is going to be the thing that continues driving it on. It's love. Your passion's going to move you only so far. But that love for other human beings, that love for yourself, that's what's going to continue the work. And that's what shalom really looks like, isn't it? It's beautiful. People seeking peace look like the divine. I hope you enjoyed this message. And again, as always, please consider donating. Please consider donating to ethos-church.org/donate. Support this. Help us continue sharing this message to everyone you meet. This is a message we think has potential to change the world. And also, if you're interested in joining people in conversations kind of like this one, where we go deeper into something and we pull something deeper, we hear other people all across the nation, please join us at our living room sessions. They happen the first Saturday and the third Saturday of every month. And so you can always connect with me, Tony Werfel, WUERFEL, @gmail.com. Email me, let you know. I'll let you know if anytime those are coming up. I'll send you the link. You can connect with us there. And again, as always, YouTube people, please hit subscribe. And the little bell. It'll notify you every time we're up. Folks, I love you. Thanks so much for joining us. And next week, we will finish talking about the blessings of the Sermon on the Mount. Take care. Love you. Bye.